Hello, everyone. Melissa and Melissa coming to you again. And today we're going to talk about a really pertinent subject today, and that is inflammation. Really talking about what inflammation is, what's it feel like, and how does it actually feed a general atmosphere of dis-ease in the body that then creates the base layer for almost any disease process.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
not a
and like
little
we were,
thing.
it's a big thing, right? And I think one of the things that may be new to some of our listeners to hear is like we all have, cancer cells that pop up in our body every day, right? Um, it's just your healthy body can
Mm-hmm.
do what it needs to do with them. And you can obviously dig into that more, Melissa, if you'd like. But I think that's a notion I don't think a lot of people understand is that it's really about your lifestyle choices and how they add up over time, which is going to give you the ability to fight off little things, right? So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
viruses, colds, whatever. Um, but then also, bigger diseases, and I know Melissa was saying it was timely because many of you know I have a gluten intolerance and I ended up being fed gluten yesterday, obviously accidentally. But what shocked me was how my body handled it, right? Versus where it handled it 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago, I was fed gluten and I was in bed for days. My joints hurt, my teeth hurt. I felt like someone had just run me over. And today I didn't make it to yoga this morning. So I just wanted to rest because I could feel it mostly here and then just in my lungs. I didn't want to push. So I rested and just kind of laid low this morning. But I'm upright and feeling much better than normal. And my stomach didn't get all blown out. So, but it's all the things we keep doing that keep adding up, right? And I think that's the biggest thing. I know we keep talking about that. What are the changes? What are these small shifts? But they
Mm-hmm.
really do make a huge difference over time. And I think
Yes.
that's where people miss it because they think there's one thing they got to do or one supplement they're going to take. And really, it's a process over time.
Exactly. I like to think of it as intentionally creating an environment, all the pieces, an environment of healing for our bodies. And that includes food choices. It includes supplements to help, fill in gaps. It includes what we're doing here. It includes what we're doing here. It's really all parts and pieces of it. Everything is so just like this. I mean, it's a beautiful uh tapestry who we are.
Well, and even like as you said, like up here. So one of the big things I noticed yesterday is I didn't freak out, right? I realized that I had ingested it. And I was like, okay, like I can panic and then throw myself into a complete upheaval, or I can just be like, all right, this happened.
Mhm.
I'm going to take my binder. I'm going to take my L-glutamine. I'm going to drink my detox tea. Like I just started the process of what do I know my body's going to need to properly process this out. And that's a big thing,
Mhm.
is I think also the mental state. If I was sharing with Melissa before we hopped on, when I'm working with people clinically, I have a couple clients who are really afraid of cancer or kind of obsessive about it. And, I talk to them a lot about working on how much they're fixating on it
Mhm.
because, and I'm actually reading this book right now. It's The Game of Life and how to win it. And, but in that book, it even talks about how we can bring about negative things by
Mhm.
focusing on them so much. And, I think we often talk about manifestation in a positive way, but it can absolutely work in reverse, right? And so I think
Yeah.
it's really important for people to be aware of that because it's like if I'm obsessing about getting something, then I'm probably increasing the likelihood, right? And so I know part of my victory last night was just not panicking, was just like, I'm going to
Mhm.
be okay. I'm going to be able to get up
Mhm.
tomorrow. I'm going to function. Um, and that was really important in how I, approach this situation, which is obviously
Yeah.
not as big as something like cancer. But when you talk to people who have overcome those sort of things, it is a lot about their mindset and how they're just trying not to slip into panic mode, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, I think that's a huge piece of the puzzle that people don't always think about was,
Yeah. And realizing too that, like we've talked about this numerous times, is that your body has your back. So, let's go back to the gluten story just because it's right now, right? You're
Yeah.
walking through it right now. But 2 years ago, when your body would just freak out for, 5 days, and you'd be in bed and intense pain, and having healed to the place where you're upright and you just got some pressure back here, you've got some stuff happening in the lungs. So understanding that the body wants to heal, and when we give ourselves the space to do that, it's gonna happen. And I think that's one thing we forget is that we can lean into what will happen. We forget that we can trust that when we create this environment for our bodies, it's gonna happen. It's not, it might happen or it maybe will happen. It just is the natural progression of things. And for somebody that's been sick for a really long time, that's hard to lean into because your experience is not that. It's the direct opposite. And
Great point.
so one of the things that I talk with a lot for clients when they're, getting ready to work with me and we're going through the intake process and they're deciding whether we're a really good fit and all that. That's part of the question that I ask is, do you think that you can be well? And I love that you connected back into one of your biggest wins was that you didn't panic.
Mhm.
And really leaning into the belief piece and the mindset piece of, oh my gosh, I can be well. And believe it or not, even when we've seen everything going this way and it's not too fun, there's always when we lean into this space in our hearts and we're going, okay, what do I really believe? There's this little flame that goes, but I think I can be well, right? It's like that's your body going, hey, I can do this. Give me a chance.
Well, and I'm sure like when you were battling MS, right? Like, your mind can take over. Like I know when I used to have
Oof.
chronic
Yeah.
pains, the obsessive thoughts were always like, I don't want to get a headache today, right? And of course I'd end up getting a headache. And so, it's also, I guess, for people listening, you have to understand it's going to be a process over time, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, 2 years ago when I figured out what had happened, of course I freaked out because I was like, but I know what to expect, unfortunately, right? But even with that, my body got me on the other side of it. But as a person who used to have daily migraines, and now thank goodness I don't really get them at all, um, I can certainly speak to, I understand the obsessive thoughts when they're coming up, but it's also so important to take control of your mind because, it'll run wild with it, right? And
Yeah.
um, I think that's a huge piece of what we've got to
Mhm.
get control of is our mental state around anything, and it's funny, I got on Melissa, like I can tell in your face because my face is certainly puffy. There's definitely inflammation going on. I couldn't see it throughout my whole body, but um, I realized it didn't kind of target certain areas like it usually does, right? And
Mhm.
so I think one of the things that maybe we can help people with, and I know we talk about this a lot, is like, all right, so if people are looking to decrease overall inflammation, what are some great basics to start with?
Mm, I love that question. So I work with people from, all kinds of disease processes, right? From cancer to autism to, rheumatoid to SIBO to MS to Alzheimer's, you name it. But guess where we always start is asking the question, what is causing inflammation in your body? So looking for what is causing constant inflammation because that causes what? Dysregulation in the
This-
immune system.
Yeah.
And in its most simplest form, that is the definition of autoimmune disease, the immune system being dysregulated. So if we can suss out those inflammation drivers and address those, and also address the inability of the body to then kind of take a breath and let the inflammation cool, because there can be something just as easy or as simple as a DOA enzyme that is not there because of a DNA SNP that really helps your body break down and process any histamine reaction in the body. So it just sits there and kind of
Right.
fires. So when we're thinking about where do we start, that's where we start, is what is causing inflammation in the body. And, for different people, it's going to be a wide variety of possibilities. But finding that for each individual that's where we start. Yeah.
Well, and I know we talk a lot about dietary changes as a first kind of baseline steps, right? So cutting out sugar, gluten, which, you know, we just had a recent run-in with, you know, processed dairy. I know some folks are okay with, like, organic raw stuff. That's certainly, I think, a trial and error thing.
Or a
And
test
then,
thing.
yes, yeah, our test thing.
Yep.
Right. I know my body does not like any dairy in any form. And then, also hydrating, you guys, making sure, and that is a combination, certainly. And I know we've talked about this before, Melissa, around not just water, but like proper electrolytes, not crappy Gatorade and things like that, but, you know, brands that are clean and that can really help supplement and hydrate, you know, and certain herbs. Like, I know one of my go-tos, we just did the whole thing about this tea a couple weeks ago talking about liver health, but that's one of the things I'm drinking today is my clean tox tea, just to help decrease the inflammation and help, my organs, give them some assistance processing this out, right? And and I think good things like bone broth and things like that, right?
That can help.
Are all great things that can help too, but also, I was chatting with a friend this morning about her niece who's been violently throwing up for weeks, right? So,
Ooh.
yeah, and it's been on and off. It hasn't been, but of course, they went to the doctor, and the doctor just says, "Oh, it's a virus, and they need to rest." But I think one of the things that I immediately thought of was, well, how much processed junk is this poor little thing probably eating,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon, right? We
Mhm.
live in like a grab and go society, and so
What is her body going? Okay, I'm up to here with.
yeah,
Sorry, but it's coming out.
yes, yeah, yeah. And I think, certainly, I know there were periods of time where my body, like, if it couldn't get out fast enough the other way, it was coming out this way, right? So um just things to think about, right, you guys, as you're kind of looking at. And I think one thing, when I start talking to people about even like our healthy living program, and I'll say, all right, we really want to cut out sugar. People often say, well, I don't eat a lot of sugar. And they don't realize how much sugar is lurking in a lot of the things that they're eating that they're perceiving as healthy.
Yeah.
Right. And that is something really to be examining, you guys. Now, like we've talked about, naturally occurring sugars are fine in fruits, we don't want to obviously overdo that either, but we don't want to just want to be looking at labels, but I think thinking about just adding more whole foods, right?
Yeah. Being aware. Yeah. And I think a lot of folks, it's a big, how can I say this? It seems and feels really big to make food changes, especially because it's not just nourishment, but it's it, an emotional attachment for a lot of us, right? We feel sad, we eat, we feel mad, we eat, things like that. And understanding too why your body is asking for these things and then leaning back into that. And I know this is your space of genius, or at least one of them, is helping people understand that piece. What is driving this for you? And on my side, there are physiological things in the body that can be driving it as well. Different bacterias and stuff that it's not really your body asking for it. It's a bacteria, and they're not going to take no for an answer.
Yeah, yeah. Or a parasite, right? Which we've definitely dug into before.
Yeah, how fun is that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think too, I mean, it's a great point, was, it can feel overwhelming. And that's why I think it's, you want to work with someone about making those dietary changes, right? And where can you start? Because I think it is unrealistic. When I even look at my own food journey, it's like, I cut out things one at a time, right?
Mhm.
And then, as I started to see the difference, then I was definitely more eager to cut out other things more quickly. But I think, you
Yeah.
know, it's a process when you're really healing, and it can take time, and the goal is for you just to keep improving, right? But
Yeah.
I think it's also tough. I mean, I know, like, even my social media feed, it's like I'm targeted every
Mhm.
day with some new herb for
Oh
anti-inflammation,
man, yeah.
liver cleansing, because we talked about it, and whatever, and it's like hard sometimes to just say I just have to keep doing what I'm doing because it's
Yeah.
going to get me where I need to be, right?
Mhm.
And but I think that's the thing, is like there's not just one thing, and it is
Mhm.
just a combination of things over time, and just continuing to get on that journey to health. And I think that's where, um, you know I want to encourage people, because it can feel like, oh my gosh, this is a really big mountain to climb.
Mhm.
And if you can start with, all right, and it's funny, like I know sometimes right out of the gate, people right up and tell me I have a sugar issue. Okay, let's start there,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
obviously that's a big problem, and then we start moving into other things. But it's amazing too how quickly people can start to feel better.
Mhm.
And then we have the bigger work of healing the underlying problem, which is really, I feel like, where you come in, Melissa, and
Mhm.
figuring
Yeah.
out what else is happening here, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
why is this person craving sugar so much? Is it a bacteria issue? Like, what has happened as the result of, poor gut health over time, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big thing to be addressed, for real overall health and wellness. But, the mental health conversation, which I know even one of the girls on my team, like, we're doing this big challenge, and I don't know, she had put up, or I'd put up a post actually to say, who's been doing this? Like, what are your takeaways? And she just said, I really am feeling so different mentally. And I
Mhm.
had shared that, 95% of our serotonin is produced in our gut, and she did not realize it was that much. And I was like, right, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So if you can think about how much your mood is impacted by what
Mm.
you're eating and what your gut
Huge.
microbiome looks like, right?
Huge. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it stands to reason why healthy people are happier people.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that Melissa does is she has correct me if I'm wrong, but a 30-day, is it a 30-day
Yeah.
food
Yeah.
um like program to help you really lean into this piece of optimizing good choices for your body, your nourishment, but also how to, take out gluten, sugar, dairy, those kinds of things and do it successfully without feeling deprived or alone. So are you accepting clients for coming into?
Yes, yeah. I mean, we just started a big group, Melissa, but I ongoing enroll people, because that is the part that I love. I love how you shared, like, not being alone. I think one of the coolest things is when I share recipes with people and I see how many things they can eat, right? Because sometimes it's like, well, what can I eat?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so many things, right? So I love that, the journey of not being alone on this, because we have such a high energy group right now. We actually have clients running it. We're
Love it.
all in there just to kind of help support, but these people are killing it. And I love watching, they're sharing their recipes, they're sharing their snacks, they're sharing, that they moved today. And I think that's the thing, you guys, because this goes back to the mindset thing, Melissa, that you brought up. But, sometimes I'll say these things and people will be like, well, and then they'll list whatever excuses they're telling themselves about why they can't move, they can't, whatever, and as much as, you know, I hated COVID and all the nonsense that came with it. I think one of the cool things people figured it out, if they wanted to, was I don't need a gym to move my body.
Yep.
I can, be at home in my own space, or,
Mhm.
get outside. And I know one of the girls shared, she's got 3 kids, and one of them was puking this morning. So she was literally just doing sets of, like, body weight squats while she was making her shake. And,
Mhm.
like, that's a start, right? And for her, it was like I couldn't get in a full workout, but at least I felt good that I moved despite kind of this chaos, right? And
Yeah.
so it's sometimes we have to get creative like that. So um I think it's also reminding ourselves that it's not going to be perfect. I remind clients all the time, it's like, if you ate something you weren't supposed to or that's not compliant, it's okay. Don't throw
Mhm.
the whole day away. Like
Yeah,
hit reset and just plan your next meal. How am I going to do this better? And
I,
that's the important thing.
I love that. Yeah. So, kind of what my team and I are doing is we provide the functional medicine piece, like, right, really the puzzle piecing, figure out what's going on in the body and why. And so we just opened we've created space for new clients. So we're accepting new clients for both Robin and I. We are the functional medicine practitioners in the team. And we also have brought in a very, very talented mindset coach who has recovered from MS as well. His story is amazing. He was an Ironman,
Wow.
competed at the international level, and has recovered from MS. We also just brought on our energy coach. She's phenomenal, has her own wellness story. So that's one of the reasons why our team is really great, is because we don't just serve from what we've learned in books and in school and whatnot. We serve from our own experience. Like, we know what it feels like to be really, really sick. And we know what it feels like to really get well, like completely well, like sustainably well. And I love that. So just letting you guys know that you guys that have joined us, that both Melissa and I are accepting new clients. And if you feel like working with one of us is what you want, then reach out to us. I'll put links, connector links at the bottom of this recording for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. And yeah, you know what, you guys, my favorite quote, and it's funny, I found a sticker that says this the other day, but it's progress over
Love it.
perfection.
Yeah.
And that's really the thing with your health journey, is it is ongoing. I think, like I had said to Melissa before we hopped on, as much as, having ingesting this was not exactly in my plan, I looked at it as a good litmus test as to how my wellness journey
Yes.
is going. And I felt like pretty positive about where I was at, right? So, and again, not that I'm going to actively seek out to do this, but when it happens, and sometimes it does, and it's out of our control,
Yeah.
it helps us go, okay, how far have I come? And I think the biggest thing I keep reminding myself is that, every day, all the choices I make add up
Yes.
and are, going to help complete this bigger picture. And so I want everyone listening, if you decide to start with the list and then you say, okay, I'm going to need help with the food, like we work hand in hand, and it doesn't always all happen at once. And that's cool too, and,
Mhm.
um, but I think one thing we both are good at is doing things in pieces,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
figuring out what people are ready for. And so I
Yeah.
hope that encourages you all, because we'd love to help you. So we just want people to feel better, because if
Yeah.
we are not in a state of inflammation and dis-ease, our bodies are really, you get to live your full out energetic life, which is such a gift.
I
And
love
I
it.
feel like when people are feeling like that, they change the world. So
Oh, can I like circle that in bold and flashing letters?
yeah, yeah,
That's
that's
when
the
we get
truth,
to show
right?
up in our genius. Oh, love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks you
Thank you,
guys for
Melissa.
sharing and showing up and being with us today. Thank you, Melissa. I
Of
love
course.
our little chats.
Thank you.
All right,
All right.
guys, enjoy your day.
Thanks, guys.